Hello guys, this is James, and now let's continue polyfilling the Vue router. First, please allow me to introduce a method in constructor. The Vue constructor have a mixin method, and it really can add some hooks inside, then make any components later created with that hooks. What's hooks? Like before create, like mounted, those are hooks. Okay, let's write up before create. Wait, another question is that do you know where does the hook stored in the Vue instance? If we really check the Vue instance, we'll check it later. In the Vue instance, it will stored in the dollar option, and in the dollar under the dollar option, there are different hooks displayed there. We will check it. Okay. So again, the Vue mixin will just any hooks we create in will be reflected in any components we will create later. Okay, now we write before create hook. Here in the hook, we just write something like a control
This one will
this, because the list will just reference to each of the components we create. And then let's just run here. So here it has already showed different components or different Vue instance we have created. And let's take a look at the second one. Why? Because as we see here, there's a root also refers to itself, because the Vue just distinguish the Vue or Vue components just by the UIDs. It means that the root of the whole instance we made is this Vue. Why we have to say this? Let me help you to recall, because the router instance we create has been included in the new Vue, that Vue instance as an option. Our next task is really to find in the prototype change is really the router instance has been included there in the root Vue instance. So we go to the dollar option, and then we say, first we check before create, because see we have two before create. The first one is actually this, because it has a function location, it refers to the one we create. So as I said, that put in the mixin in any of the Vue components or the Vue instance itself, it will have this before create. As we see, it's also here in another one. That's the first thing. The second, we have to check if the router has already been the properties of our in the dollar options of our root components. Since we have really pinpoint that this one is the root components, then what we're gonna do is to look for the router. Yeah, it's here. Look, it has in the options, routers, and it has two areas. And that's exactly what we have defined in Dex here, right? That's exactly what we have defined here. So really, the parameters is passed in and stored. We can also check another one if it in the options, it has the same root options. Let me check the options here. See, it doesn't really have router in a root inside, which has verified again that the router has just been put into the root components or the root const instance rather than other instance. All right. The second thing we have to do is to deal with the root views. So what does root views do? Since root link is the one we really have to find the hashtag, or more precisely in the property 2, we just find the where the 2 point at, then we convert, we just render it to the a tag, and then we jump to that place. But jump to that place, it will be anything blank, right? Because we haven't really designated any Vue component to be rendered. So how we can really associate the hashtag with the Vue components? Yes, we just use router Vue to do it, to link the hashtag with the component we want to render. Alright, let's start get writing. First, I think it's really necessary to have a local variables to save where are we at or the location. It should be, the initial value should be just a slash, means we are at the root direction, and then we just have to monitor if there's some events happen. The events is in the window. So if the hashtag really changed in our direction, what I'm gonna do is to really change the current value of list.current. So the current will jump to the hashtag, the link we already clicked. And the event is hash change. The window will detect if the hash will change, and the callback function will be something like this. So use slice one because we don't really want to pass the hashtag, the symbol, to the current. And if it has changed, then we give the changed one to the current one. So the current will be the new one. To verify what we really get from the window location, we just put a console log to print it out to see what really we got. If it's really with hashtag or not. Okay, let's just check in the web page. Look, it really shows a hashtag and it just refers to the hello view. That's the link, right? So it really can listen. Right, now we just use the list current to just capture the change of the hashtag. And then the next thing we have to do is in the root views, what we're gonna do is to put the changed hashtag to link to the components. And also in the root views, we have to do the same thing, that is to render it. And we cannot use template to render. The thing we have to do again is to use the render functions to render it. And what we have to really put it here is, and then is dot. Okay, what we're gonna find is the parameters we have passed in the view router. Since we have stored everything in the $root, then $option, then the components as we see earlier, right? We have to find where we have stored the instance and the options of the router. If we have something like this, then what we're gonna do here is this. Yeah, I just copy. If it exists, then we will call each side. We can see router option roots. Wait, I think the order is a little bit wrong. The root first, the router. First, we should really check the roots. Okay, the roots, then it should be the option. Then roots option router. Roots option router, correct. And then still options and roots. So we NAC option and I also add it here. We got this, and for each, we can define a router path. Maybe roots it's better. If the root path equals to dot, here we want to find the current. The logic is if the root path equals to the current, here it means that the path is really the current one, because current one, if it jumped to another one, it has been assigned to the new value already, right? So if the root path equals the value of the current, then it will render the new one. So that's the logic, right? And how we can really find the current? Actually, it just stored here. And let me check. In the option and the option current. So we just have all the thing until router, all the thing until router. And then dot. All right. If it is equal to this one, What we're gonna do here is to use component. Oh, it should have a initial value given. Component equals to root dot, because we have look for the component here. That's something we want to link the component to be rendered. And then after we do everything, we can just run. I think that's the whole logic. I just repeat. So we cut a long chain here to just find in the if in the root it has these routers. It has this router. Why? Because there are two. We have checked in our design. There are two root Vue components, and only one have it. That's in the underscore UID one. So we use if just to pinpoint the one which has the router, and then if it has it, we will just get each of the paths, and then we compare the path with the value of the current. The current will be changing in accordance to the here to the window event. If it really detect okay something changed, it will have a new value here, and if it has a new value here, we will compare. Okay, it's a new address already. We really have to pick the components stored in the component to be rendered. Then, okay, we just return the one has been rendered. That's the basic logic in the router view. Later on, in the place we use the view router view, it will be replaced by the rendered, components, right? And it's something dynamic because then every time we really can render something different. Another question, super important. Why we really have to find all the way in the view prototype change to look for the current value, to look for the path, those options has been included in the router instance. We have defined the list option, right, in the class routers. Why cannot just use the options here, because it has everything already there. Also, there's a list dot current. Actually, the install is the method for the constructor, but if we define the class, it's the property of the instance. How come a constructor can really get the property of the instance, right? The instance can only inherit anything from its proto, it's right, or the prototype of the constructor. That's why we have to search really in the prototype chain. Another thing very important, we have to know that the render review, when it change the link or it direct to different components, it's not at the time or when we initiate all the view components. It's really after everything has been rendered on the screen in the browser already, then we want to change it again. So the question is that how it really needs this render function in the router view will be called. There's no sense it will be automatic called, right? It should be something to trigger it to be called. What should trigger it to be called? Yes, the value of the current, right? So when the value currents change, then it should really be triggered. That's sort of the logic. But prior to that, let's first test that will this render in the view router view will be called automatically or not. Let's just check first in the browser. Click. Okay, actually nothing changed here, right? If we go back again, click, well, nothing changed. So here's the problem. It will not really automatically call this render function we have defined here. So it cannot really be rendered again. All right, so what we're gonna have to do is to make the current reactive. Again, in Vue, anything that is reactive, the change of the value will be being gathered by the Vue, and it will be rendered again in any place that the function will be called again if any place using this change value. For instance, here the case is in the router view in this component. And there are different ways to achieve it, and we just use a method in the constructor view.util.define property. It really can make the anything that's reactive. The method in view utility util, there's a define. We define interactive, so we don't have to really put it like this. Now it's really reactive. There's a problem that the view is not defined if we really comes here. Why? Because the view is only being passed here in the router.install method. So we really have to capture it. How? First here we just define something like this. And here we need capture the view constructors here. So here we can really use it. And another thing is that instead we just move it here. That's it. All right. And then actually I also add here the router link. So there are two links. One we can really back to the hello world, and the other one we go to the home page. Hello world, home page, hello world, home page. Actually, it works very well. There's only one problem. Why the page itself, the content doesn't change. Even in the console, we can see that it really output well the different hashtag. Another error, actually here's not dollar roots. Earlier I read dollar roots. It's really roots without any dollar sign, so it really can work well. Let's see. And also, as we can see that every time we just jump to a different one, it will create another new view component. Why? Because we call this function again, and this function just render a new component. All right. So I think that's all for the codes of Vue routers, and we just make our own Vue router or polyfill it. And the most important thing is that how we really write the global component, and we should really make and then what does the router link and the router view do? And we also know that what is really the reactivities in Vue. That is, if that something changed, a value changed, a variable changed, then it will be rendered again. And how we can really make it really reactive. We can use the method in the constructor view, and then it has something like define reactive. And the last thing is that how we can really find our values, because we have used it as an option in the roots view constant instance. Then we just try our way to find it, and then we just get it, and then just render what we have to render. The render function always return the components. So it has been rendered, and then everything is done. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next. Polyfilling the Vue router might be a little bit complex, so anyone have any questions, you can leave a comment, and if I really don't make it so clear, also make any questions so I can really answer. Thank you again.